Student Union Study Hall, Episode 8. We are getting down to it, boys. Final Four this Saturday. I know we're excited. A little sad to see the season coming to an end, but everything's been great so far, and I can't complain. So let's get into it. Before we get into Final Four talk, they released the All-American teams. You guys have any problems with this lineup? We've got on the first squad Frank Mason, Josh Hart, Caleb Swanigan, Lonzo Ball, and Justin Jackson. We'll start with Austin. What do you think about this squad? And if anything could change?
One thing I would have done is, not for the AP one, but for the U.S. Basketball Writers Association. I had to vote in that one, and I had Jonathan Motley higher, which, humble brag there. But, I had Motley higher. I think he should have been first team, just because I think that he carries a lot more of the load for his team than Justin Jackson does. I don't have an issue with the rest. The only other issue I really had was I think Josh Jackson should have been ahead of Dillon Brooks. I was trying to think who it was. Yeah, Dillon Brooks. Just because Dillon Brooks didn't play for a good portion of the year, and plays mostly against kind of candy ass opponents because the Pac-12 is terrible. And so I don't know, Josh Jackson, just what he was able to do, the way he was able to take over games down the end of the year. I think that maybe some of his off the court stuff hurt him in the voting, but I don't know. I thought he should have been higher, but overall, I didn't really have an issue with it.
Luke?
I would just like to give a quick shout out to Peter Jock for getting an honorable mention spot, but Sindarius Thornwell, I thought, kind of got hosed, especially the way he's led the Gamecocks through the NCAA tournament to this point. Looking at his stats right here, he's averaging almost 22 points a game. He's shooting 83% from the line and 45% from the field. He's just been doing a lot for that team this year, and he's a senior this year, and since he's been there, South Carolina's been a pretty respectable program. A lot of that goes to Frank Martin too, but as I mentioned, led him to the Final Four, and I think he's very overlooked because of the conference he plays in. If you're from the SEC, I think Florida or Kentucky are the only way you're going to make an All-American team, and I just think that's one of the reasons he was overlooked.
Yep. You know, I'm a South Carolina boy and definitely think Sindarius got hosed on this one. One thing I got to ask is, when did they actually vote on these? Was it – because I think they might have just missed a sweet spot. They might have been right after the conference loss.
I think it was
the conference tournament loss and before the first round.
I think it was definitely before the tournament.
Yeah.
So I feel like if they could have seen him, how he's playing in this tournament, things might have been a little different. Also, another shout out to my boy John Collins on Wake Forest. You know, just to perform the way he did, averaging 19 points, 10 rebounds a game on Wake Forest in a conference like the ACC, that's impressive stuff. And if he was on a better team, I think he'd probably be on that list. Moving on to the next one. This is a topic that one of us really wanted to bring up. I'm excited to see his point on it. Bill Self, should we begin to question this man in March? We'll start with my man Luke on it. What do you think?
So he's probably the greatest regular season coach of all time. You could make the argument he's won the Big 12 straight times now, is it, Austin?
13.
See, all he does is win. And, I watched a game earlier this year against West Virginia, and I was ripping Kansas home court advantage the week before, and they were down 12 with 2 minutes to go, and they ended up winning the game in overtime to just shove it to me a little bit. But I think he has one national championship since he's been at Kansas. He's been to the Elite Eight 9 times, which is not easy. But I'm going to attribute a lot of those Elite Eight performances to he has teams full of McDonald's All-Americans. They can take you far. The talent on his teams will always get him to at least the Sweet 16 in the NCAA tournament. And at a certain point, you're going to have to face a coach a good coach like Duke, North Carolina, even Butler when they had Brad Stevens. But I don't know. I think he's an all right coach in the tournament, but that's just about all I'll give him.
Austin, you might disagree with this one.
Yeah, so first of all, it's incredibly, incredibly difficult to make the Final Four. It's not like, oh, you have a good team this year, so if you don't make the Final Four, you're a failure. Here's the thing. You look at the last couple of years, North Carolina and Kentucky, both in the last 7 years, have missed the NCAA tournament, had to go to the NIT. Kansas has never been at that point. And so they don't have down years like that. And so you got to respect their consistency. Another thing is, yes, coaching is a big part of the NCAA tournament, but ultimately it comes down to players. If you watch the Oregon game, it's not that Self had a bad game plan. These players just missed shots. The shots that they've been making, the shots that they lit up Purdue with in the second half. If you don't make shots, I mean, you can draw up the greatest plays in the world, but I've never really seen a tournament game, with maybe the one exception being a couple years ago when they got bounced by Wichita State in the second round. I thought Greg Marshall really outcoached him there. But I don't think you can say, oh, well, just because you lost to a pretty good Oregon team, you're terrible. Versus if you look at, I'm going to go ahead and take this opportunity to rip Scott Drew. If you watch the Baylor-South Carolina game, it was clear that there was a huge coaching discrepancy because there was no game plan. And if you don't, there's a big difference between not knowing what the other team's going to do on defense and not having a game plan versus your guys just missing shots. So I don't really have an issue with Bill Self as a postseason coach. Maybe since he said 13 straight Big 12 champions that are basically 1 or 2 seeds every year, maybe more than 2 Final Fours. I think it's a legit criticism, but no, I don't think he's a bad postseason coach.
Yeah, I'm not saying he's a bad postseason coach, but you can certainly say that he hasn't been the best postseason coach. I mean, he's lost a lot in the tournament, and he's dropped some games to teams that he just shouldn't lose to.
I'll just say I feel like he's under the magnifying glass because he's in a lot of big games. And, when you have 416 wins over the course of your career since 2003, and pair that with, sorry, I have my stats all up here, with 68 losses, I don't think you can ever really question this man when it comes to basketball. So I'd trust him in the tournament. And since he has that national championship, I don't really think anyone can take anything away from him. If he didn't have that national championship, maybe it's a different story. But with that, a couple Final Fours, some Elite Eights, I don't think you can say anything about this guy's performance in March. But definitely something to think about. People will bring it up. And you just got to hope Kansas fans know better, know they have a great coach in March. Obviously a great coach all the time. But moving on, while we're talking about coaches, a lot of new coaching hires in the college basketball world. Tom Crean out at Indiana, brought in Archie Miller, Willie Wade over at LSU, Kevin Keatts to NC State, a lot of them to talk about. Are there any ones you guys are specifically excited for or interested by? Who wants to start with this one?
I'll take it. Yeah, cool. First of all, Tom Crean should not have been fired. That was bogus. Second of all, the biggest tragedy of this offseason is that nobody has hired Tom Crean. Oklahoma State had a coaching opening, and I was hoping he was going to come to the Big 12 so bad because I would love to watch Tom Crean on a nightly basis. But Oklahoma State made a really underwhelming hire, promoting one of their assistants that even Oklahoma State fans had to Google who he was. Cal did the same thing. I would have loved to see Tommy on the West Coast just because him and Bill Walton on the same production would have been great. But as far as coaching goes, LSU hiring Will Wade, I'm a little bit suspect. Wade's done well, but he also inherited a really good team at VCU. I'm not a huge fan of the way he left that program just because they're losing a few guys next year, Mo Alley Cox and a few others. And so I think that he was worried that the program was going to take a little bit of a dip next year, and so he wanted to bolt before he could. And so I don't really know that you can say he's a great coach because he won with Shaka Smart's talent for 2 years. But I think Archie Miller is a really good hire at Indiana, and I think Kevin Keatts is a really good hire. They're both going to do well as long as their delusional fan bases are satisfied with normal basketball success and don't expect the national championship next year. Then we'll see. But overall, I don't know. If I had to rank the hires, I'd probably say NC State getting Keatts, Indiana getting Archie Miller, and then LSU getting Wade.
Yep. Awesome. And Luke.
One thing I'll say about Archie Miller is that an improvement from Tom Crean.
It's a lateral move, if anything.
Yeah, I mean, Tom Crean won you 2 Big Ten titles in 8 years, which is pretty tough to do in a conference that's back and forth with different teams all the time. Yeah, yeah, more than Izzo. But and he only won like 64% of his games at Dayton. That's 6 out of 10 games you win. That's not going to get you in the tournament most years, especially in the Big Ten when you're coming to a tougher conference. Now, recruiting will be easier for him because Indiana is a kind of a powerhouse in college basketball, but I just don't like that move at all. I think it's pretty much the same. You replace Tom Crean with Tom Crean 2.0. But one coach I kind of liked hiring is Brad Underwood at Illinois. A lot of people kind of aren't talking about him because it happened, I think, the first weekend of the tournament. He's assistant at K-State in South Carolina and head coach at OK State last couple years, I believe it was. And he did a pretty good job.
Just 1 year.
Just 1 year? Just last year?
Yeah.
But
he bolted real quick.
Yeah. Well, that's a pretty nice looking job. I know Illinois was looking to make or give a coach a lot of money. I heard they offered Monty Williams, who's in the NBA coaching ring, they offered him a contract that would have made him the richest coach in college basketball, if you can believe that or not. But I don't know. Illinois hasn't really been good since they made the tournament in 2012, 2013, first year with Gross, but that was Bruce Weber talent. And the high point since that time has been their victory over Zeller-led Indiana when they were number 1 in Champaign. So, I mean, this is a pretty good hiring, I think. Underwood can bring some new life to the program. I think it's a good hire.
Yep, I agree with all that. Back to Tom Crean. I think we talked about this on an earlier episode of Study Hall when he was catching some shit earlier in the season. We're definitely all Crean guys here.
Yeah.
So I think this is the first thing we've all three of us have agreed on. So let's relish in this moment and someone hire Tom Crean, please. Moving on to coaches that just got hired that I'm excited about. Austin mentioned Kevin Keatts. I know a lot about this guy because my school, College of Charleston, had to deal with him all year in the Colonial Athletic. He basically wiped the floor with every team, Cougars included. And I'm just really excited to see how he plays at the higher level of the ACC with NC State. Like Austin said, you can't expect them to, make a crazy run and completely turn the program around this year, but expect to see progress and expect to see them competing in every game. Because that's what I saw with them this past season. So very excited about Kevin Keatts. This next one I'm excited about too. Kentucky fans.
Speaking of delusional fans, here we go.
Huge week for Kentucky fans. Starts with all just the hilarious viral videos of that Malik Monk hitting the shot, then Luke May draining that shot with 0.3 left. That's awesome. Then you got them just lighting everything on fire in Lexington and sending death threats to the referee of that game, John Higgins. So I don't even know where to start with Kentucky. Austin, you want to start with this one?
Yeah. First of all, Kentucky fans may have surpassed Indiana for just how delusional they are, except for they're so, I don't know if you'd say insecure or what, but if you even to any Kentucky fan make the slightest hey, maybe John Calipari's not the best coach of all time, or maybe he struggles in this area, it's no, he's good. They would all just attack you. We have one Kentucky writer for the site who is a pretty good testament to that. But anyways.
What up, Jared?
What's up, Jared? But anyways, yeah, I don't know. I just don't get their mentality of, the world's against us, the refs are against us, the media's against us. Nobody's against you. You're people acknowledge that John Calipari is a good coach. Obviously, he's had enough success to where people respect that. But just this whole complex of first of all, the foul disparity in that game was 1. North Carolina got or Kentucky got 1 more foul call than North Carolina did. And so there were some bad calls, as there are in any John Higgins officiated game, but getting on the internet and sending him death threats and then burning their own furniture, because that'll show them I'm going to light my own stuff that I paid for on fire. That'll fix the NCAA. So yeah, no, Kentucky fans are the worst.
Luke?
Hey, just grow up, okay? Like, nobody loves sports more than me, and I mean, I show a lot of emotion during a game, but I'm not going to go threaten some guy's life because he had a tough call. I mean, I'd like to see some of these pieces of crap that are just watching the whole tournament and just freaking out on everybody that makes a bad call. Hey, officiating's hard sometimes. I mean, I have my gripes with officials, but I never once have I said, "Oh, I'm going to go kill that piece of shit." But I think it's just a dumb move on their part. They're entitled little white boys. I mean, you're not. It's like a team full of Luke Kennards out there freaking out. You're not. Losing is a good thing sometimes. Okay, just look.
No, it's not.
Okay.
I'm gonna go ahead and disagree. Losing is bad.
Okay, the Cubs were bad for
Tops in Lexington.
Cubs were bad for like 108 years. They never won a World Series. But when they win, but when you win, it's so much sweeter. I think it'd be good for them to have a couple losing seasons in a row, and it wouldn't hurt anything. But I'll give props to the
that's Scott Drew's mentality.
Kentucky team. I mean, I didn't know these one and dones cared that much, but when I saw De'Aaron Fox crying after the game in the locker room, I didn't really like the idea. I don't like the idea of one and done, but because I thought they just didn't care that much. But seeing Fox cry like that, I mean, that kind of got to me a little bit and made me open my eyes and change my thought process there.
Cared a lot more than Alonso did after they lost. Tell you that much.
No kidding.
Alonso acted like that was just a minor inconvenience in his day.
Yeah,
walking to a little bit of a bigger paycheck.
Yeah,
so it's a little different. But yeah, I agree with you guys. I just think Kentucky fans should know better. They can't be one of the best teams in college basketball every season and not understand that college referees are absolute garbage. They should know that by now, and it shouldn't be this big of a reaction now. Side note, I feel like any college town I go to, like if their team's playing that night, your night's dependent on the game. If I'm in Columbia, if Carolina wins, we're all going out. If not, kind of sucks. You got to stay in. You went to Columbia for no reason, and none of your friends are going out. Kentucky, they lost. Everyone was still out there, but the only difference was that instead of celebrating, they were all just angry as shit and burning everything they could find. TVs, jerseys, shirts, whatever. Yelling, fuck UNC. Security guards, or I guess they're cops, sitting around like almost SWAT team members, it looked like, having no clue what to do. And it almost makes you want to say, like, can we just let Kentucky win next year so we don't have to deal with that? Because that's absurd. But that's my rant on Kentucky fans. God bless Lexington. Let's move on to the actual Final Four, the teams that are left. We've got Gonzaga, USC. That's a huge one. And then UNC and Oregon. I guess we'll start off with just breaking down the games, and then at the end we'll give our picks on the spread so we can continue with our against the spread records. Luke, thoughts on these games?
Yeah, this is like the most unique Final Four I can ever remember. I mean, Zaga's never been there. South Carolina's never been there. Oregon was in the first one ever back in the 30s. North Carolina's always there, so whatever for them. But this Zaga South Carolina game, I could just see it being like a total like shit show in a good way. It's just going to be scrappy. I think they're going to be fighting for that ball title appearance on the line. Thornwell could have a very big game in this one. He's just such a force out there. I don't know about Gonzaga, how they're going to control him. They could really just throw Karnowski at him so he doesn't step inside the paint. But
Big Jimmy.
I like South Carolina. And then for the North Carolina-Oregon one, I think Oregon's clock's about to strike midnight, and they're about to turn back into a pumpkin or whatever it is from Cinderella. But, yeah, I think North Carolina...
Movie reviews, Luke.
Movie, yeah, the princess one. But I think North Carolina they've got some very good big guys. I know that Oregon has that one Bell guy who's played out of his mind in this tournament, but like Kennedy Meeks and Hicks, I think they're just going to be too much to handle down low. Justin Jackson, he's just an animal. So I don't think that one will be as close as the Gonzaga, South Carolina.
Austin?
Yeah, I like the Zags a lot. I mean, it's pretty rare that you get a team that's basically top 5 in offense and defensive efficiency. And coming in, basically everybody was saying, oh, those numbers are wrong because they've just been playing bogus teams all year in the WCC. They pretty much proved that wrong. I mean, they ran through the tournament slate pretty easily. I know they had a close game with West Virginia, but West Virginia is a really good team. And so I think they've kind of silenced all of that. South Carolina, we knew all year that they were a good defensive team. The question was whether or not they could score. And the past couple of weeks, they've been able to get hot. Thornwell's been playing out of his mind, but they've also had other guys that can hit shots. And that's just really been an abnormality compared to what they did the rest of the year. And so I kind of wonder if, especially with the week off, I know especially shooting is a lot of times more difficult to Final Four because for some ungodly reason they decide to play at a football stadium. And so it's weird, like what's behind the scenery is different. And so I kind of wonder if they're going to be able to keep up the offense they've had just because Gonzaga is going to be able to hang with them defensively. And so I like the Zags. The other one, UNC Oregon. I had picked UNC from the beginning. They've looked good. I mean, they looked really good against Kentucky, except for they tried to lose that game in the last 45 seconds. I think they were up like 7 with a minute left or something like that. But ultimately, it's going to come down to Bell versus Kennedy Meeks and Justin Jackson. I mean, UNC's got more than enough big guys to counter that. They're a team that if they're not hitting threes, that's really kind of okay because they can get the ball inside. They can attack the rim better than just about any team. And Oregon can't. And so especially at the Final Four, shooting numbers go down a lot. Part of it's nerves, part of it's the venue. But so I like North Carolina in that one, and then I also like Gonzaga in the other one.
Okay, fair enough. I agree with you guys on UNC. I think they handle Oregon. I think this is a game that they're really going to be trying to prove to themselves that they deserve to be where they're at, and I think Oregon's the perfect team to prove their worth against. And plus, UNC's just been there so many times. I think plays into their favor. Sliding over to the game, I'm more excited about South Carolina Gonzaga. Well, Gonzaga is an amazing team, and I have been riding them all year, both with my bad Sam just as a fan, because I don't think people have been giving them the credit they deserve. I got to go with the Cox here. They're playing the best basketball they've played all season. Austin already worrying me. Will shooting keep up? I hope so. I think production remains the same. If we're spreading the ball out, because Sindarius Thornwell's putting up the most points every game, but you got to realize each game there have been 3 other players with plus 10 points in the double digits. Everyone's getting boards. Offensive boards are going to be huge, especially with that big Polish fuck, Karnowski. Big shimmy, as I hear they're calling him. He's going to be tough to deal with, but I think the Cox take it, and then we'll have the rivalry no one knew they needed, but you do need North Carolina versus South Carolina. And in that game, I think anything goes. I'm just excited to see 2 teams from my area going at it. So hopefully that all happens. Let's move on to our against the spread picks for the game. What are our records at? I've kind of lost track. Well, I haven't lost track of mine, but Luke, where are you at? I'm
3-3-1.
Okay.
Yeah, I pushed last week too because I had I had Florida -1, so that one was exciting to sweat out. But yeah, so I'm 4-2-1.
Okay, and that makes me 6-0, I guess, with South Carolina's big win. I got to start just only betting on Wednesdays, like only making my picks today, because I don't have this record, like this consistency in any other line of gambling. It's only our Wednesday night picks. So got to stick with this. But I guess I'll head off first since I'm feeling pretty confident. We're doing both games?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, obviously taking the Cox plus 6.5. I think they'll win straight up. And then UNC -5, I think. And I think you guys got to keep an eye on that spread. I'll take them at -5, but I think it'll probably drop as we get closer to tip-off. So people will probably get a little better value on that. But UNC -5, South Carolina plus 6.5. Who wants to go next?
I'll take it. I'm going to take South Carolina plus 6.5, but I think Gonzaga wins the game. And then I'll take North Carolina -5 over Oregon, like I mentioned. Oregon's clock's about to strike midnight, so I'll take those two picks.
Well, one of us is going to be very disappointed Saturday night because I have the exact opposite picks of both of you two. So part of me feels good that I have the opposite picks of Luke.
Contrarian.
I also have the opposite picks of Liam, so we'll see. Gonzaga -6.5. Gonzaga has been the best team in the country against the spread all year. Like I said, I don't think South Carolina's offense is going to be able to stay where it has been. I think they keep the game close for most of it. I'll bet it's close at half. But again, like there's not really an area that you can look at and say South Carolina has a definitive advantage. I mean, I think that Nigel Williams-Goss is at least comparable, if not better, than Sindarius Thornwell. I mean, I think their defense is good. So I like the Zags. The Oregon one is a little bit tricky. I looked online and it tells me that the Big Sharks in Vegas know something. Oregon could keep it very close. I could definitely see this coming down to the last possession of the game. I think Oregon's a better team than Kentucky. And so I like UNC to win, but I think it's going to be a very, very close game, and so it could come down to 2 or 3 points. So I got Gonzaga -6.5, Oregon +5, going against both of you, so we'll see.
All right, just keep in mind, Austin, if you lose that game and I win, we're tied. So just keep that in mind. We'd have the same record. We'll be good.
Luke, you better not throw off my mojo, dude. I've been killing it.
I'm on a hot
feeling cursed now.
I'm on a hot
streak. On my ticket now. But.
I'm on a hot streak, Liam.
Okay, well, let's ride it. Let's ride that streak. Guys, thank you for tuning in. We'll be back next week to recap Final Four. Hopefully have some good shit to talk about, and hopefully me and Luke or Austin, whoever you went with, won you some money. Take it easy, guys. Have a good one.